Well, if you F around, you're gonna find out. And the American voters, not all of them, obviously, but enough of them effed around last November. And since January, when the orange buffoon they voted for took office, the entire country has been finding out just how stupid that was. And not just the entire country, but really the entire world. I've got a few issues here, a few articles that I'd like to discuss briefly with you. Let's begin with farmers. Farmers were overwhelmingly in support of Donald Trump and probably still are. And yet they were hurt greatly during the first Trump administration because of Donald Trump's tariffs, particularly on China. Of course, the damage they suffered was mitigated because Trump bailed them out. So these farmers in the first term, they voted for Trump. Trump hurts them by slapping on tariffs on China, because what happened is China reciprocated and slapped tariffs on U.S. exports. And farmers, we send a lot of agricultural products around the world. And China has historically bought a lot of our agricultural products. Specifically, soybeans is one of the major agricultural products they buy from us. And soybean farmers were greatly hurt by the tariffs that China responded to Trump's tariffs with. And they lost lots and lots of money. And so Trump, wanting to be reelected, bailed them out. And so their losses were mitigated by the American taxpayers bailing them out. So they voted for Trump, and then we had to bail them out because of the policies that they voted for. Now, typically, Republicans would call that kind of thing socialism, but when it's not technically socialism, but that's what they would call it. And, but since these are MAGAs primarily who were the recipients of that socialism, they have no problem with that. As you can see, where we have Donald Trump actually seizing the means of production in the case of Intel, the MAGA cult is full on for socialism now. It is full on for an authoritarian state. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that. Let's just stick with the farmers, shall we? I've got an article here from MSN. Here's the headline. Rural America is suffering an economic crisis as crop prices plunge. Let me read just a little of this. U.S. producers of corn and soybeans have sent dire warnings as prices for their crops have crashed in recent years, while President Donald Trump's trade war whipsaws farmers. On Thursday, the National Corn Growers Association raised alarms about the economic crisis hitting rural America as commodity prices drop at a time when input costs remain at near record highs. And input costs are going to continue to rise because one of the import costs, for example, for farmers is, fertilizers and things like that, a lot of which we get from Canada. And as you know, Donald Trump is in a trade war with Canada, so those are an example of input. Why do I keep saying that? Input costs that go in the production of these crops. And so the price to produce crops in the United States is increasing while the sales price for these crops is decreasing. So the farmers, once again, by Donald Trump, are getting screwed. But of course, they voted for this. Let me continue. The NCGA called on Congress and the Trump administration to boost demand, including via higher blends of ethanol and increased foreign market access. Well, you're going to have a problem with the foreign market access there because we're being squeezed out of foreign markets because of the orange buffoon you voted for. Now, as to ethanol, this is what they do every time. When they're having problems, especially, these corn growers, they want Congress to increase the mandated ethanol, percentage in gasoline that is sold at the pump. Now, I don't want to get off on a whole thing about ethanol, but the reason we have ethanol blended into our gasoline really has nothing to do with environmental concerns. I mean, there may be negligible environmental benefit, but there's a flip side to ethanol. It is damaging to cars' engines, especially in older vehicles. It also decreases the fuel efficiency because there's less energy in ethanol than there is in gasoline. So you end up, ironically, having to buy more gas the higher the ethanol blend. Anyway, there's pros and cons. The point is, the reason we have mandated ethanol in gasoline has actually nothing to do with environmental stuff. It's all about politics, specifically presidential politics. See, every member of Congress, certainly everyone in the Senate, and most people in the House, who they all have delusions of grandeur. They all fancy themselves future presidents. And they know that Iowa is exceedingly important in the primary process. And so they bend over backwards to pander to Iowa voters. Even before they run for office, or even before they ever run for president, they're setting the stage. They're thinking about their future run for president. I'm telling you, almost all of them do this. And so they pander to voters in Iowa, meaning they pander to farmers. And that's why they started, Congress has mandated ethanol blends be sold. It's to pander to corn farmers. And so here they are calling on these corn growers, once again are calling on members of Congress with delusions of grandeur to come bail them out. They want Trump to bail them out. It's only a matter of time, by the way, before they start calling for direct bailouts like they got last time, like cash in their pockets bailouts, which is probably going to happen. We're going to have to foot the bill for bailing these farmers out, once again, bailing them out for the consequences of their vote. Anyway, so that's what's going on there. They're wanting Congress to mandate that we, the consumer, have to have higher blends of ethanol in our gas to save the corn growers from the consequences of their vote. Let me see here. Quote, historically, the U.S. was the provider of choice for Chinese customers. And let me back up. The group asked that Trump prioritize soybeans in trade talks with China, seeking major purchase commitments as well as the removal of Beijing's duties on the U.S. Quote, historically, the U.S. was the provider of choice for Chinese customers, the letter said. However, due to ongoing tariff retaliation, our longstanding customers in China have and will continue to turn our competitors in South America, I'm having a hard time reading today. What is my problem? Will continue to turn to our competitors in South America to meet their demand. A demand Brazil can meet due to significantly increased production since the previous trade war with China. With harvest season fast approaching, the association added that China hasn't purchased any U.S. soybeans for the months ahead. What do you think is going to happen? Of course this is going to happen. When you disrupt your trading relationships with other countries, they make other arrangements. Okay, when you treat your trading partners like shit, they say, okay, screw you. You're not the only game in town. We can buy our corn and our soybeans and other agricultural products from other countries that aren't stupid enough to elect someone like Donald Trump as president. So that's what we're going to do. So, China's already, since the first Trump administration, we slapped those tariffs on them, they said, screw this. They went to Brazil. And once they were trading with Brazil, they continued to. This is exactly what happens. But you know what? This is what happens when you have a country full of unserious people. Everything's a political game. Nobody understands how anything works. So they vote for the guy who is an outsider, who's going to break the system. The system exists for a reason. This system, there's lots of things wrong with various aspects of our various systems. But a lot of these things, like our trading relationships, these are relationships that have developed over the decades. And then Trump comes and just disrupts them all. And we get caught in the crossfire. And you know, people around the world do as well. Anyway, so that's what you get. You voted for this, MAGA. So thanks so much. And I'm glad at least to see that you guys are getting screwed. Because, as I always say, it makes me happy when people get what they voted for in a democracy. You voted to screw yourselves. So congratulations, that's what you're getting. And I certainly hope that you don't get a bailout. And you know, Trump doesn't need your vote anymore, by the way. The last time you got a cash bailout, it was because Donald Trump wanted to run for re-election. He doesn't need your vote anymore. So I don't know if you're getting a bailout this time. Okay, let's move on to, I just want to mention this real quick. U.S. trading partners dazed and confused after tariff court loss. I talked about this at length on the podcast the other day. The appellate court has upheld a lower court decision ruling that Trump's tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional. Now, they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will probably take it, and the tariffs remain in place as for now. The appellate court delayed the implementation of their decision until October 14th to give the Trump administration time to appeal it to the Supreme Court, who will then, if they take it, probably slap a longer hold on the appellate court's decision. Anyway, this article talks about, you know, what this does to our trading partners who entered trade agreements with the orange buffoon. And they're dazed and confused. What do they do now? They made these trade agreements based on the fact that Trump's tariffs were put in place. Now the tariffs might be lifted. What are they going to do now? You know what? I understand that. They shouldn't be dazed and confused. They should have anticipated that this was a possibility. You know, and I'm sure that they did. Leaders of other countries, they have experts in the American legal system, you know, advising them. And so certainly they've had some legal advisors saying, hey, Trump put in these tariffs. He doesn't really have any legal authority to do it, so the courts might overturn these. We need to anticipate that that's a possibility. So I don't know that they're really dazed and confused. But this does, the fact that there's so much chaos surrounding these tariffs, you know, Trump puts them in illegally, he takes them off, he tacos back and forth, and the courts, you know, rule them unconstitutional, but don't pause them, you know, and it's ultimately going to be decided by another court, and it's a mess. It's a mess. This is no way to have trading relationships. There's no stability here. How the hell are other countries supposed to make deals and make decisions about the future when the future is completely unknowable here in the United States because we elected this friggin' incompetent buffoon who changes his mind back and forth? Like I said, he tacos back and forth all the time. Then we got this, you know, legal system that increasingly doesn't even follow the law in order to cater to this orange buffoon. So this is upending the entire world order, all our trading relationships, and American consumers and businesses are getting screwed because, you know, we're getting hit with reciprocal tariffs because of Trump. And this is no way for businesses. Business can't operate like this. I mean, there's no stability. It's impossible for businesses here in the United States to make decisions based upon what they expect to happen in the future because nobody knows what the hell to expect in the future. And by the way, this is the reason why Trump's tariffs are never going to result in companies moving their manufacturing to the United States. They're not going to move to the United States, go through the time and the money to set up manufacturing plants in the United States because of the tariffs, when the tariffs might not even remain in place. They could be struck down by the courts, and they may only last for as long as this orange buffoon is president, which is probably not going to be very long, right? He's term limited. I understand the whole he's probably going to not leave thing, which I don't want to make a part of this discussion. But have you looked at him lately? I don't think he's long for this world. So he's not going to be president very long, one way or the other. And so no company is going to move their manufacturing operations from outside the United States to inside the United States based on these tariffs that probably aren't going to last long one way or the other. Now, one more thing I'll leave you with. This is going on today. China's Xi rolls out the red carpet for Putin and Modi as Trump upends global relations. Xi is hosting a meeting out there. Let me just read a little of this. Heads of state and delegations from across Asia and the Middle East will meet from Sunday in the Chinese port city of Tianjin for the two-day summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a regional security grouping that has emerged as a cornerstone of Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin's drive to rebalance global power in their favor. Chinese officials have billed the summit as the SCO's largest yet, with the diplomacy and pageantry setting the stage for Xi to tout his country as a stable and powerful alternative leader at a time when the world's leading superpower, the United States under President Donald Trump, is shaking up its alliances and waging a global trade war. The world is seeing that the United States is no longer a reliable or stable leader. And they're looking for alternatives. And Donald Trump is pushing other countries into the arms of Xi Jinping. He has, for some reason, gone to war, not literal military war, but war against India, treating them like absolute shit, slapping like 30% tariffs on them, trying to bully them. The world's largest democracy, he is pushing them into the arms of Xi Jinping and China. And there's alternate, people are, they're moving on. The world is moving on and preparing for a new world order where the United States is no longer the global leader. It's only a matter of time before they dump the US dollar as the world reserve currency. I mean, it's going to get ugly. But this is what happens. None of you and I didn't vote for this, but the American people did. And so too did the tens of millions of people who didn't even bother to vote at all. I guess it wasn't serious enough. A guy who actually was talking about being a dictator was on the ballot, a man who tried to overthrow the republic, inciting a violent insurrection as part of a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the republic and stay in office illegally. That man was on the ballot, but tens of millions, literally tens of millions of Americans couldn't bother to even vote. More people did not vote at all than voted for either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I'll leave you with this, because this is true, and you can't escape it. Donald Trump is not the ultimate problem here. Donald Trump is a symptom of the problem. The problem is the American people. Donald Trump should not be president. If the people of this country were more serious, more well-informed, gave a damn at all, he wouldn't be. The problem is the people. And we're all going to continue to find out just how stupid and dangerous and destructive it was that so many Americans, the morons we're surrounded by in this country, decided to F around back in November. We in the world, we in the United States and around the world are going to suffer the consequences as a result. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy your day. Talk to you again soon.